Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the simulation. My name is Reese. Today is the 21st of October, 2025, and today I would like to deliver a monologue to you about the left v right PsyOp, and then after that we'll get into some stories and we'll take a look at the chat. But this is a long time coming, this talk about the left v right PsyOp, the origins of the left v versus the right, and how it has been used to keep people perpetually divided, keep people from unifying, keep people from seeing things a bit more clearly, from waking up, from staying inside the simulation. Once you withdraw your brain from the simulation, you understand that the left and the right are a tool of division. They are used to perpetuate the masses against each other, or perpetually keep the masses divided against each other. The left and the right share many qualities, which I will go through. Now, if I was to do a political compass test right now, which I might do later on in the show if people want me to, it would probably put me in the center, maybe center left, maybe center right. I don't know. But it wouldn't put me on the right. It wouldn't put me on the left. I would be very close to the center. And the fact that people call me far right or right wing is a perfect example of the left v right PsyOp, because people live in echo chambers. And when they hear things, they associate it with the right wing or the left wing. For example, if you have a concern about immigration, you're right wing. If you think that billionaires are the problem, you're left wing. And therefore, as a result of the fact that I call out billionaires being the problem, but because of depopulation, and immigration is a problem, but it isn't the only one, I get labelled left and right, and people find it very difficult to tell if I'm left wing or right wing. And that's good, because I am a humanist. You know, I say this to people, I am a humanist. I am not a nationalist. I am not right wing or left wing. I am not even an ethno-nat. I mean, you might ascribe the term ethno-nationalist to me because of my beliefs, but deep down, I'm a humanist. I'm on the side of humanity. I'm on the side of withdrawing people's brains from the simulation, getting them to understand the true realities of the world. Now, let's dive in, right? Let's dive in to the left v right PsyOp. Now, I've got a lot to say about this. I don't know how long this episode's going to be, but I do have a lot to say here. I've made a lot of notes. Now, the left and the right fear each other. They believe that each one's existence is an existential crisis, existential threat to their existence. They believe that, for example, if you're a leftist, you believe that the right wing are fascist and they're coming to take over, coming to give you authoritarianism. They want to basically just have a total fascist authoritarian state. And the right believe that the left are all trying to kill them. And just on that point, Charlie Kirk has perpetuated that. Not himself, but I mean his death. The assassination of Charlie Kirk has been blamed from the mainstream on a leftist. But the problem with that logic is that this guy is most likely a patsy, and also there is an overwhelming amount of evidence to say that it was not Tyler Robinson, that it was somebody else, that it was probably a deep state operation, maybe a military operation, maybe an Israeli operation, but it wasn't a leftist, and even if it was Tyler Robinson, it did come out previously that he had, had a Republican family. Yes, he had a transgender partner, but at the end of the day, I believe that people can be gay and conservative. So, there's quite a lot of people in this space, actually, that represent that. Now, this is essential, right? This idea that the left are dangerous is essential to people on the right because they believe that they are fighting for civilization by trying to destroy the left. But here's the problem, is that the left aren't the ones that are controlling the institutions and everything like that. The ones who are convincing you that it was a leftist are the ones doing that, right? And here's the thing about the left versus right thing, is that where did it actually originate? Well, it originated from literally from the seating arrangements in the French National Assembly during the French Revolution in 1789. Those who supported the revolution were on the left, and those who supported the monarchy were on the right, and the natural order, the current order that they were going with at the time. And so basically the left were associated with progressivism and revolutionary change, and the right were the monarchy and traditional order. Today it's like left is radical progressivism and the right is conservatism, but it's not as radical if we're being completely honest. Now, as I say, think about how this has changed. How it's changed, how it was, and how it's going, right? They were republicanists. Is that even a word? It was republicanism at first for the left. And now it's about, a feminist matriarchy or transgenderism, right? And taxing the rich and all of these other insane policies. And for the right, it was preserving the monarchy and the way of and the natural order. And now it's like Zionism and an ethno-state at its furthest point, right? Now, realistically speaking, I would argue that all of us in the modern day, or at least most of us, 99% of us, would have identified with leftism in its old format, right? In its old meaning, in its traditional meaning, progressivism and a revolution against the natural order, the way of, the more power of the people. But the problem is that it's been hijacked by insanity and mental illness and living in delusion. Now, living in delusion is not exclusive to the left. You also will see it on the right. Transgenderism is an example. A communist matriarchy is an example. I'm not making that up. This idea of a communist matriarchy isn't something that I've pulled out of thin air. This is something that leftists, I've spoken with leftists, and they say, well, this is my solution. We need socialism, extending to communism, and we need to have society ran by women. And it's like, okay, that's actually insane. I'm not going to lie to you. And then on the right, you've got like abortion bans, which abortion bans don't work, and it's a bit of a fantasy because you're going to have black markets, and an ethno-state, which is a fantasy and it's never going to happen. So both sides live in delusion. That's a commonality. And also so two commonalities so far is that both sides live in delusion. Both sides think that the threat to society is each other, right? Rather than the people above playing them, like a fiddle, right? Now, there is also, I'm not going to go into this too much, but there is also a religious element to this. People on the right and who are conservative are a lot more religious. People on the left are atheist or sometimes Satanist. Again, opposites of each other. So, and people, and what's true about religion, this is all I really want to say about it, because I don't want to get too into it. But if you are religious, you are of the belief. One sec, I'm just going to sit back a bit. If you are religious, then you are of the belief that the person who doesn't subscribe to your religion is going to rot in hell and burn in hell for the rest of their life. And I would argue that if most of the left are atheist and most of the right are religious, then there's a big fundamental divide there. These people believe you're going to hell. The right are living in a bit of a, you might say, not that I'm saying it, but you might say they're living in a fantasy where they believe in, because each religion, is different from the next. Each variant of religion. I mean, Catholics believe that if you're not a Catholic, you're still going to hell, even if you're a Protestant, but you believe in Jesus Christ. So they believe that they're going to hell. But then again, the leftists don't really think that. But the leftists do think that the right wing are evil, right? And they're fascists and all the rest of it. Donald Trump is a Nazi. So there is also a religious element to it, which is part of the divide and conquer tool, fragmenting the masses amongst each other, different religions, right? But here's the thing, is that leftists, I mean, the right have got a lot of some things right, but leftists also have got one thing right, which is that the problem is the billionaires. Now, that is actually, in my opinion, that is true. The problem is the billionaires, but the reason why they're the problem is where they fall short. The reason why billionaires are a problem isn't because, exclusively, that they hold all of the wealth. That is a problem. They have a disproportionate amount of wealth, and after COVID, billionaires got richer and richer and richer and more powerful. But it isn't just about that. It's also about their intentions with society. Case in point, Larry Fink, who wishes to depopulate humans and replace them with AI. He's gone on record saying this. If you've been following me, you know that that's true. So, not necessarily a problem that they have loads of money. That is a problem, but it's also the fact that they wish to depopulate us and replace us with AI, and especially in the first world, the developed world, because, as Larry Fink has gone on record saying, Larry Fink is the CEO of BlackRock. BlackRock owns a ridiculous amount of wealth, trillions and trillions in assets. So Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock, who has gone on record multiple times and said that the first world countries are more primed to receive the AI transition than the third world countries because of their infrastructure. So, as I say, the leftists understand that billionaires are the problem, but just for the wrong reason. So they'll vote for Zach Polanski because Zach Polanski is going to tax the rich. Even if Zach Polanski goes on BBC and gets just absolutely shown up by the BBC presenter because of the amount of wealth that we're actually generating here. We're not really doing anything. We're just driving billionaires out of the country who have quite a big part to play with regard to the capitalist society that we live in. And then, similar for the right? They understand that immigration is a problem, but they fail to link it to the New World Order. They say we're getting flooded with immigrants, but then they won't think about the Jewish prophecy. They won't link it to Barbara Specter, who said that Europe will be multicultural and that Jews will be at the center of it and they'll be disliked for that. They don't link it to the ethno-state in Israel and the idea that Islam is the broom of Jews, Jewish power, Judaism, in order to destabilize Europe and make it so that the Israeli ethno-state is the world dominating power next to China. They don't link those two things. They just say immigration. They just say, immigration bad, because they don't engage in conspiracies. Both sides. And that's what makes both sides just as bad as each other. Because they don't engage in conspiracies. They might laugh at you. They might say, knee-jerk reaction, you think weather manipulation is real? Both sides. They might say, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer? They might say, oh, you think they're turning the frogs gay? You know, very rarely do you hear people on the right talk about these things. Now, to be fair to Hugh Anthony, who I do like, he did mention that yesterday on his show. I think he did a great show yesterday and I watched it live. It was really good. You should watch it if you haven't. And I don't know if he's mentioning this because of me or what, but it does appear that he is mentioning it. He's like the only person that I've seen mentioning it. He even talked about weather manipulation, so fair play. And but that's the fundamental disconnect between the left, right people, and then the ones who are awake and have withdrawn their brains from the simulation. They understand that conspiracies are real and they engage with them. And they're not afraid to engage with them. And it annoys me that people don't engage in conspiracies because it's right in front of you. It's like you can do less than 10 minutes of research into weather manipulation and be almost certain that it's taking place, at least somewhere in the world. Then you can look outside your house and you can view I know I'm always talking about weather manipulation, but you can view a trail that maybe follows a plane because it's a contrail and it fades with the plane, and then you can see a chemtrail which doesn't follow the plane, it stays in the atmosphere and it expands, and then it crosses with another one and makes a fake cloud. Anyway, so point being is that these conspiracies are very easy to engage with, just a little bit of research, but it's cognitive dissonance and it's ignorance that the people who perpetuate the left and the right divide don't engage with. Now, it is essential for the simulation to keep the masses divided and prevent unity. if someone on the right is against digital ID, then it might make someone on the left for it. And similarly, if someone on the left is against Zionism, it might make someone on the right for it. Because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now, I don't necessarily subscribe myself to that logic, right? But it is true in some cases. Because, well, does it apply politically? Not really. Maybe sometimes. But in these cases, it doesn't really apply. But that's how people think. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, if a leftist is for digital, or rather, if someone on the right wing is for digital, is against digital ID, then it might make a leftist be for it, and then back and forth, right? The logic is is very tribal. Well, it's extremely tribal. Humans are tribal. And so they will lean into certain positions just because it benefits their tribe. It's a position shared by the rest of their tribe, so they will lean into it also. And this is, as I say, this is another element of keeping the masses divided. Now, you might have heard of the term echo chamber, right? Now, amazingly, the left and the right think that each other are in an echo chamber, but will fail to realize that they both are. And a good example of this is Jules. I don't know if you know Jules, but he will claim that I am in an echo chamber, and I perpetuate echo chambers on my TikTok. But here's the thing, is that if he's going to say that I'm in an echo chamber, then he's got to acknowledge that he also is as well. But he won't. Despite the fact that in his bio on TikTok, it says, debunking right-wing grifters. And in my bio, it says we live in a simulation. And on his account, it's him debunking right-wing grifters. So in other words, pushing a left-wing point of view. But on my account, you've got a combination of dissent to right-wing ideas and dissent to left-wing ideas. Hence the reason it's difficult for me to grow, because humans are tribal. And there aren't many people awake. There aren't many people that might subscribe to the idea that we live in a simulation. Although there are some. For example, I'll criticize mass immigration, then I'll criticize Tommy Robinson for being a Zionist. I will talk about the Muslim takeover, and then I will criticize Steve Laws. I will talk about maybe the replacement agenda, and then I'll go against reform. So it's quite nuanced, I would argue. Maybe you could analyze my TikTok page, and you might find that I lean one way or the other. But I would say that it's reasonably nuanced, right? One sec. Yeah, I like that line better. So amazingly, right, the left and the right believe that they're in an echo chamber, but or the other one is in an echo chamber, but not themselves, which I find to be it's borderline hysterical, and this is what Jules said to me, right? And I'm like, well, you think I'm in an echo chamber, but you are more of an echo chamber than me. And the problem is that the media and social media are controlled by the elite, obviously, and they perpetuate this echo chamber. They make it more powerful. You might have seen clips where it would be like someone debunking something, and then in the comments it would say, thought I was in enemy territory for a moment. Because people believe that the enemy is the opposite side of the political wing. But it isn't. And so the media also will perpetuate these echo chambers, but it is very much on social media. And unfortunately, you will see quite infrequently people making intelligent arguments to defend their side about whatever it is, and that's because they don't have one. You might see someone talking about immigration saying this is why immigration is the main issue, but they won't actually bring any good arguments because it's not the main. It's one of the biggest issues, but it's not the the main contending factor that you need to actually talk about. You might see a leftist say that billionaires are the problem because of wealth, but they're never going to make a coherent argument because it's not about wealth, it's about depopulation. And so there's this constant back and forth where no one actually gets to the nucleus of the problem, because in order to get to the nucleus, you have to withdraw your brain. In order to get to the nucleus, you're not debating your fellow man. Like, unless you're trying to convince them that we live in a simulation. But if a leftist is trying to convince someone on the right that billionaires are the problem because of wealth redistribution, someone on the right is going to say, well, who do you think's bringing in all of these immigrants? It's billionaires for cheap labor. And they're never actually going to get to the nucleus because they believe they've got these two conflicting ideas, but neither of them are correct. It's not correct that mass immigration is the only problem. It's not correct that billionaires having all the money is the only problem. So therefore, you can have an argument for hours about it and never get to a coherent position. Now, where are we at? So the left are an echo chamber of pro-Green Party and tax the rich. The right only hear about immigrants and ethnic nationalism. People always comment on my videos and tell me that they can't tell if I'm left or right. And the truth is, as I say, I'm pretty centrist, also nuanced. So it's always very binary with these people because people are low IQ and not intelligent. They try and label me, but it's very difficult to label me because I'm always making you contradict yourself. You know, and I had it before many times. I've had it before where someone will get annoyed at me because of my mass immigration stance, but then I'll point them to my pinned video where, they'll say, oh, you're so dumb, you're so uneducated, la la la. And I'll just let them get it all out. I'll let them get it all out. Get it all out, buddy. Get it all out. Then at the end of it, I'll say, hey, have you checked my pinned video? Then they'll check it. It's me calling out Lee Anderson for being pro-Israel. And they'll go, oh, wow, you're actually more educated than I thought. And that's perfect. That's what you need to do. You need it. You need to hear someone that sounds intelligent, that comes across with good points, that is coherent, where you can't tell where they are on the political spectrum. That's what I'm trying to do. The video I made yesterday was coherent and it makes sense and it has good points to it. And people can't tell if I'm left or right wing because I'm always going against one or the other. Because that's what I'm talking about. It's all the PsyOp and I can recognize that. But people don't want to hear that, right? Anyway, let's keep going. Now, it's true that the left wing are more deranged, I would say, and more violent, I would also say. Maybe there's maybe people could debate that. I'm probably going to hold that position right now. However, I do believe that they are just as intelligent as one another. I don't believe that the average right winger is more intelligent than the average left winger, personally. Because the left are made to seem as the enemy of civilization because of their derangement and their violent tendencies. But are they controlling the banks? As I say earlier, are they controlling the media, the S&P 500, the politicians? They might be violent, they might be deranged, they might be like, I saw a video of a guy who opposes transgenderism and, some leftist, but in reality it's just someone who is deranged, is going up to him and attacking him. But is that leftist the enemy of civilization? Or is it the person that is manipulating the leftist to be like that? Where did transgenderism come from? Who has pushed this onto society? Is it your average common leftist? No. They have been manipulated by John Money, who pioneered it in the first place, who's Jewish. It's Jewish, right? It's a Jewish PsyOp. It's also satanic. Now, I don't believe in Satan, but it is satanic. It's anti-human. It's anti-Christ, right? It's anti-Christian. So you might think that leftists are more violent and deranged, which I would agree with, but they're still not the enemy of civilization. It's the ones who are controlling the S&P 500, the politicians, the banks, the media, and the ones who are manipulating them to be that way. Was society always this mentally ill? Well, before we had... Holy crap. Before we had mental institutions, but now we don't. So maybe it appears that everyone is more of a lunatic. But I do think people are more angry. I do think people are a little bit... And I think that that's partly because of vaccines. So, you know, are they the ones that are pushing the vaccines? Are they the ones making the 5G towers? No, it's the global elite that are seeking to depopulate us that are doing that. You know, and there are two groups of peasants currently. And it isn't left and right. It's not that we've got a divide. Well, we do have a divide between people who subscribe to left and right-wing ideology. Or at least what's considered to be left and right-wing ideology. Because you think about previously, as I say, the origins of left and right. You've got the social progressives, and then you've got the traditional monarchists. But nowadays, it's nothing like that. It's just different opinions that get ascribed to different sides to perpetuate division. But there are two groups, effectively, of peasant. There are the sleepers, and some sleepers are more deranged than others, hence the push for cheat transgenderism and political violence. And then there's the non-sleepers. And when I went to the digital ID protest, it really helped me realize this. Because I went to the digital ID protest, and I started speaking to someone, and I already knew that they knew about weather manipulation, they knew about vaccines, they knew about the rest of it. They've read this. Oh my god, I forgot about this. I've got some water. That's so good. They have read, you can't see it correctly, but they have read this. They've read the light paper multiple times, at least once. And those who have read the light paper are awake, for the most part. And in the light paper, is it going to just mention immigration? No. Is it just going to mention that there's a fascistic authoritarian uprising? No. I'll tell you. It starts out with another outbreak planned. Will you comply? Talking about COVID and vaccines. Then they talk about how vaccines cause AUTism. Yeah? Then they talk about the brick card as a bait and switch PsyOp, which is digital ID. Then they talk about an inquest into Derek Dimmock, who was effectively sedated, well, allegedly. He was allegedly sedated, over-sedated by the NHS. And the NHS is doing this, right? The NHS is a big problem. They are they are practicing involuntary euthanasia, effectively, right? Then they talk about, I believe, social media as a way of engineering people's thoughts. And they talk about ULEZ and the ULEZ scandal. They talk about... What one's this? I don't know what that one is. Then I'll just do one more. And then it gets to the Epping migrant delusion, right? So it will talk about all of the issues because it isn't propaganda. It isn't this is not someone who believes this is someone who believes that the left and right are being divided against each other. This is what I got this from the digital ID protest. The ones who are there are the ones who are not sleeping. You know, who went to that the people who went to the Tommy Robinson march didn't go. Probably a lot of them didn't go to that digital ID march. The ones who went to the digital ID march, probably a lot of them didn't go to the Tommy Robinson march. Right? And so that's that, right? As in, you know, the people who are there know the conspiracies. They engage with the conspiracies. They're not afraid to do it. They've got the intellectual capacity to do it. As I said, I saw a sign that said, "Stop spraying our skies" in my video. And it just warmed my heart. Like, I can't even tell you how much it made me happy when I see another person that agrees, like, that sees what I see. Because I don't know a single person who would have come to that conclusion on their own if I didn't push them there. And so, yeah, and they will know all the conspiracies because they are not asleep. But the rest of you, the rest of society, are asleep because you believe in defeating the left or defeating the right. And that's what the people who control both sides want you to do. The people that control Farage, the people that control Starmer, the people that control Zach Polanski, the people that control the Conservatives, want you to think that each other are the enemy, when in fact you are on the same team. Fragment the opposition, make it harder for them to take you out. Last thing, as I say, they want you to believe that I've been monologuing for 30 minutes. Unbelievable. The last thing is that they want you to believe is that Starmer is the enemy. Do you remember when I said that if you revere false idols, you fail to realize your enemy? I want that on my tombstone. Yeah. And that ties directly into this idea that Starmer is the problem. The example that I use is that Elon Musk, who keeps saying the government doesn't serve its people. Elon Musk is getting involved in our politics, saying that the government doesn't serve its people, la la la. The British people have had enough. Right? Like, no shit, buddy. Because it serves other billionaires like you. It serves the elite like him. Yeah? The American government doesn't serve its people. It serves the oligarchs. It serves the big tech companies at the moment. Yeah? And when you revere false idols, you fail to realize your enemy. And when you fail to realize your enemy, you show hatred to the wrong entity. You fail to realize that Keir Starmer has no real bearing on making our country worse. He is only the puppet that absorbs your negative emotions. And that is so that you don't direct them in the correct direction, which would be the global cult above Starmer and Parliament. The left reveres Zach Polanski currently and hates Starmer and Farage. The right reveres Farage or Tommy Robinson or Steve Laws and hates Polanski, Badenoch and Starmer. Both failing to realise their common enemy because of the perpetual infighting. And Hugh Anthony yesterday said that the nationalists need to stop fighting amongst each other. But the truth is that the humans, the people, need to stop fighting amongst each other. You know, I made a video yesterday of a Muslim going, "Oh, we're taking over England." It's like, do you realise that you are a pawn in this game? You are being used by the same global elite that hates you and me. That video, you know, if a Muslim hears that, they might think, well, maybe I can understand. Maybe I can see why, you know, us taking over is actually not a good thing. Maybe that's what they want. Maybe my enemy isn't actually the English or the non-Muslims. Maybe it's actually the global elite. And if you're a nationalist and you're fighting against the left or you're fighting against people who aren't nationalists, then you're asleep. Because you're not fighting against them. You're fighting against the global cult. You're standing up to the ultra-capitalist business owners, CEOs, the people who want to depopulate you. The people who want to depopulate you will get rid of you as they will a leftist. And they will use these puppets to keep you distracted in the meantime. And so, the left versus the right is a PsyOp. A tool for division, a distraction, a way of keeping people infighting. Infighting is not nationalists fighting amongst each other. It's not leftists fighting amongst each other. It's not like the Homeland criticizing certain people in the nationalist movement. It isn't me criticizing Steve Laws. It isn't Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn falling out. No. It's the idea that the right needs to defeat the left, or the left needs to defeat the right. The idea of even nationalism. Nationalism as opposed to humanism. Well, we need to take our country back before we think about a wider white alliance. No, we don't. Because we are a country, but we're actually not. We're a colony. We are a colony. All of the Western Europe countries are colonies. You could even say Eastern European countries are colonies. Australia is a colony. New Zealand is a colony. Canada is a colony. The United States of America are colonies. South American countries are colonies. Of what? Of Zionism. Of a colonial, relentlessly power-hungry Zionist agenda that seeks to have more land and more control. Are you going to fix England without, or rather, are you going to fix the United Kingdom without fixing the rest of Western Europe and Australia and New Zealand and America? No. Because you're a colony of Zionism. You need to dismantle Zionism. You need to dismantle the global elite. You need to dismantle the depopulation agenda. You need to stop AI. This is global. So this idea that we can just save England or the United Kingdom and we'll be fine, and we'll start repopulating and we'll deport people and the European Union will comply. I mean, think about it logically. You need the European Union to comply with receiving immigrants or making mass deportations happen. Therefore, it's a multinational fight. It's white people. If you are tribal, you need to think about white people. It's not about the United Kingdom. It's about white people. But then on a broader level, it's about humanity, because they're vaccinating in Africa. They're pushing digital ID in Vietnam. They're having regime change in Venezuela. They're having regime change in Iran. It's global, it's humanity. So, on a smaller scale, it's not about the United Kingdom, it's about white people. The white home across the world. We need to defend our people first. But if we can do that and dismantle the Zionist colonial force, then we can start to look out for the rest of humanity, because they won't have the power and the global connections to do these things in places like Africa. So yeah, that was I don't know how I've even monologued for 38 minutes there, but that is that. Now I do want to get into some stories. Bear with me, I need to just quickly pull up the YouTube chat. What do you think of Liam Tufts? I was sad to see he's visiting Israel with Tommy. Yes. Welcome, Gracie. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. Yeah, Liam Tufts. Well, someone sent it to me, and I thought to myself that he looks like a Tommy Robinson ally. That's what I thought. He looks like a Tommy Robinson ally, skinhead and all of this, doing a podcast, probably controlled opposition. And then someone said that he is. So I believe it is controlled opposition. The thing is, most of them are. You know, you have to look at who they do adverts for. If you have a suspicion about someone, you should look at who they do adverts for. That's going to give you a good idea about what kind of message they're pushing, what kind of cause they're serving, right? Anywho, right, let's get into some stories. Now, the first one I want to talk about is this wild shit, right? Take a look at this. Oh, wow, nice. I do this every time. Take a look at this, right? illegal migrants are not just abusing our country and hospitality, but also our national religion. Now, this is why you need to be a pagan. So illegal migrants are being baptized in bathtubs in it's so insane that you just don't even think it's real. I will get to the chat just after we get into some stories. Illegal migrants are being baptized in bathtubs in migrant hotels, and I think they're doing it so they can claim asylum in Britain. According to the Telegraph, a Christian charity is going into migrant hotels, dunking blokes from the Middle East in some bathwater, and then if we send them home to places like Iran, they'd face persecution. How much do you want to bet that they have never set foot inside a church? Blah, blah, blah. Afghan acid attacker Abdul Ezedi converted to Christianity. He was allowed to stay in Britain despite being a registered sex offender. Doused the woman and child in acid, threw himself off a bridge. Had a Muslim burial ceremony, and blah, blah, blah. Now, I would argue that the outrage here is kind of cultural appropriation. I mean, they're doing this so that they have an increased chance that their asylum claim gets put through, which, logically speaking, makes sense. I mean, if you're them, you're probably going to do the same thing. But this is just a relentless attack on our culture and our history and our heritage. I am not a Christian, but it's like, this is the type of spitting on one's culture that is just going to the furthest and furthest extent. And it's happening in migrant hotels funded by Serco or BlackRock or the UK taxpayer. And it's using your own culture against you. It's not only spitting on your culture, which it is, but it's also using your culture against you to your detriment. And they do this. This is not the only way that they do this. But the point here is that they are manipulating Christianity to the detriment of the citizens, right? Like, think back to, and this is basically I don't know how relevant this actually is, but think about Charlie Kirk. When Charlie Kirk got shot, well, actually, before that, let's go before that. Donald Trump. When Donald Trump got shot in the ear and he just about turned his head, if that even happened, they said it's a miracle. They said it's God who saved Donald Trump. God saved Donald Trump. He must have done it for a reason. Let's elect him. He's going to save our country. Usurping faith in God, in miracles, in divinity to serve the globalist agenda to the detriment of the citizens. Charlie Kirk. His bullet, or his bones, miraculously stopped the bullet. So it was a miracle. It was divine intervention from God that meant that no one else got killed. So believe the official narrative and don't think about anything else that it might be. Again, to the detriment of the common man, the common person. Migrants are being baptized in bathtubs to be Christian so that they don't have to go back home. Usurp Christianity for the benefit of the global elite to the detriment of the citizens. And this seems to be very common. Not only, I feel like to say at this point that they are eroding the culture is true, but it's actually a bit of a half, it's not quite getting to the nucleus of the issue. It's like they're eroding the culture, but they are actually usurping and using the culture to manipulate you or to make it to the detriment of you. Candace has been given a gag order. I might take a look at that. I might take a look at that. I might talk about that on TikTok. I'm gonna do a TikTok live. So, And look, I'm not, I'm not religious, right? But I do have these views about Christianity. So I believe that, yes, whilst this is kind of spitting on the culture, I do believe that this is a usurpment and using it to further the global agenda. This is quite common at this point, right? Now, one sec. Let's go back to scene 3, right? There's also this, right? How common is severe climate change anxiety in Canada? 2.3% of people in Canada experience climate change anxiety at a level the authors considered clinically relevant, causing meaningful distress and disruption in their lives. The severe manifestation of climate anxiety was more common among people who had directly experienced climate change impacts, women compared to men. Those in northern Canada compared to southern Canada, younger generations compared to older generations, blah, blah, blah. A second peer-reviewed study published late last month, authored by a different group of researchers, found 37% of Canadian teens said they felt climate change was impacting their mental health. Now, I think it's reasonable to assume that you could apply similar numbers to the UK. And I've got 2 issues with this. The first issue is that this is kind of coinciding with the Green Party's rise to fame, rise to prevalence. I don't believe it's organic in any way. The Green Party is, the Green Party, right? If you are concerned about the environment, forget any other policy that they have got. If you're concerned about the environment, then you should vote for the Green Party, because the Green Party are going to, tackle climate change. Now, forget about the fact that China is emitting an insane amount. But here's the thing, is that I have climate anxiety, but not because of the climate change agenda, which used to be called the global warming agenda. It's because of weather manipulation. And so, if people are really concerned about the climate, then they should. It's like they've got them to be concerned, but it just is for the complete opposite reason. It's like the complete. It's like this. It's just a simulation. It's literally a simulation. Like, people are concerned about climate change because of fossil fuels and the ice caps melting, rather than the fact that you're being sprayed and the trees don't have enough sunlight to change carbon for oxygen. Therefore, your environment might be uninhabitable. And weather manipulation ties into engineering atrocity, like, for example, floods and storms, which they do. So they are psyoping people into believing that fossil fuels are causing climate change, and these climate, these situations, when in reality it's all totally and utterly manufactured. And it's sad, I do think that I've said previously that I believe that the older generation are asleep, but I actually, and I've thought that the younger generation were waking up, and that's true to an extent, and that these polls could be very heavily influenced. But when I went to the Digital ID March, it was mainly older people. There weren't that many younger people, to be honest. And so, yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then lastly, right, the last story that I want to quickly get into before I just quickly look at the chat for a bit is some good news. Some good news finally, right, which is that the Metropolitan Police have confirmed they will no longer be investigating non-crime hate incidents. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. When I saw that, I was actually really happy, because I've been a little bit anxious about whether or not, the old Bill's going to come to my house, whether or not, I'm going to be visited by, a policeman. My mum and dad are going to have to go and deal with that shit, right? Because of, like, a non-crime hate incident, and I'm going to have to, like, have the whole rigmarole around it. But that hasn't happened. And I haven't incited violence, and I haven't been reckless to inciting violence. I've just been giving my opinions, my analysis pretty much for the entire time, or making you aware of certain things. So this is good. This is very good news. Now, I don't really know why this development is taking place. I can't really give you an answer. I think it had something to do with the comedian who got investigated. But, and I assume that they're just spending too much time policing these tweets. But logically speaking, I would argue that they're going to start policing something else. Maybe protests. Maybe they're going to allocate more police resources to something different. I don't really know. I don't really know how to look into this. But rather than that, rather than looking into it too much, I'd rather just take it as face value. It's good news. A little bit of freedom, a little bit of anxiety kind of off my shoulders. Chip off my shoulder, you might say. And I feel I've got a little bit more, like, I don't feel that there's any real likelihood that I'm going to be visited by a copper, which is good. So I was quite happy about that. And yeah. So yeah, Liam Tufts. So Liam Tufts is an ally of Tommy Robinson. I mean, look, let's look. I'll try and do something with you. Wait, let me just because I can almost guarantee that you can find a little bit about him based on his sponsors. Oh, this is the Raise the Colours founder on this one.
What is Raise the Colours?
Working class guy.
Ryan Bridge. Okay, so there was another one. Okay. Let's do a bit of research, shall we? Let's do a bit of research whilst we're here. All you want to know is if they're linked to Tommy Robinson. A businessman behind the Raise the Colours campaign has seen Birmingham and local communities covered in St George's flags. Elliot Stanley has always denied he runs with fellow founder Ryan Bridge. Elliot Stanley, co-founder of a private company behind the Flags Initiative, has always denied the campaign he runs with fellow founder Ryan Bridge is politically motivated, describing himself as a patriot and a centrist and not right-wing. Footage captured outside a Solihull Hotel shows Stanley gesturing at an anti-racist group who were declaring refugees welcome. He was approached by a woman who wanted to speak about his views. The woman, a local carer. Anything here? She was keen to have a conversation. I thought it was... Oh, there you go. A photo gallery on the website includes photos of the pair up ladders attaching flags. They also proudly hoist Unite the Kingdom flags, the name of the mass... Right. So they hoist Unite the Kingdom flags. Now, that doesn't technically mean that they're affiliated with Tommy Robinson. I think that's probably a comment. So, but if you took a look at this, if whatever his sponsors are, because he's probably going to have a sponsor. Gold Seal, Sheila G. Okay, there's nothing really that crazy about that. You know, Gold Seal founders. But right. So then let's have a look at another one, right? Okay, fair. He's had Jamie Icon. Okay. Then again, he might be controlled opposition. I think the last thing we'll just do here is just type in Liam Tufts. Oh, he's got a new name. He doesn't use his name Liam Tillett. Yeah, okay. Operates under the name is Lennon's close confidant and the first port of call when he falls off the wagon. Yeah. So I would not trust him whatsoever. This is bought and paid for media, I would say. 100%. What do you think of privatization? I think that privatization works in some aspects. Like, privatization in general, it depends on what you apply it to. Privatization of the railway networks and it might be good, but privatization of the NHS might be bad. So, but I think that privatization should be a bit more encouraged, as long as, again, we've got a capitalist society that isn't dominated by depopulationists. Candace has been given a gag order, right? Let's have a look into that real quick, and then we'll probably wrap this up. Conservative influencer Charlie Kirk's murder has sparked a gag order limiting lawyers' public comments to ensure a fair trial. See what she's saying. $7 million, that's crazy. Yeah, I think that the thing is with Candace, right? I do believe that she is an actor. Like, I'm actually of the opinion that she is an actor. Partly, at least. You know, George Farmer is the spouse. If you know anything about George Farmer, you know, Michael Farmer, right? Michael Farmer, this is his dad with the Conservative Party, member of the House of Lords, right? And Michael Farmer was an active proponent of Brexit, donating $300,000 to the Vote Leave campaign. And then you've got to think about, what was the other thing? Let's say Reform. Or Farage, Nigel. Farage. Oh. Swear. Nah, I didn't even know that. George Farmer is a businessman who serves as a director and shareholder of the company that owns GB News. What? I didn't even know that. Oh, no AI overview for this one. Oh, nah. Besides being the son of a prominent Conservative peer, Farmer was also the former chairman of Turning Point UK. Farmer joined the board of GB News. Wow. Wow. That's interesting. Don't you think? Don't you think that's interesting? Well, on that note, I think we'll leave it there. I'm going to be on live on TikTok right now, right after this stream. So, or maybe I'll just do it right now. Maybe I need to... I think I need to charge my phone a little bit, actually, but... That was interesting. I didn't know that. So, you could plausibly connect Candace Owens, because GB News is the mouthpiece for reform. And it's also Soros-funded. So, if Candace Owens is the... And this is also an arranged marriage. You've got to understand that Candace Owens is in an arranged marriage to George Farmer. George Farmer is director of All Perspectives Limited, which owns GB News. GB News is funded by Soros, and it's a mouthpiece for reform, which is a Trojan horse party for the Sharia compliant society, establishment party, Muslim head of policy. Candace Owens is really dumb. Like, let's keep it a stack. Like, Candace Owens is not intelligent. She doesn't even know how to speak English properly. Candace Owens is pushing the Brigitte Macron story, which is true, right? She's correct about it, but she's amplifying it. Who is an enemy of France? Russia. Who is Nigel Farage accused of being a puppet for? Russia. Hold up. Murdoch. Oh yes, Rupert Murdoch. That's what I meant. I think Soros has also funded it. One sec. Wait. So Legatum, which is a Dubai headquartered company, who is the CEO of Legatum? Founded by Christopher Chandler. Isn't this the guy who donated to the Conservative Party? Oh no. There's no Russian interference here. Yeah. Okay. So. Interesting. Very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. Well, look, we'll leave it there for now. But I do appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you very much. If you, yeah, I'll be live on TikTok momentarily, so I'll be there. If you did enjoy the live, then I appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed if you're not already. Leave a comment. What did I do bad? What did I do good? What would you like to see? What would you like to see differently? And I would appreciate that. That would be great. Share the podcast if you think that your friend would like to listen, or if your family members you think would enjoy listening to this. If you know anyone who is perpetually in this left and right divide, who needs to hear what I've got to say here, then definitely send it to them. I'd appreciate that a lot. But yeah, have a great rest of your day. This has been The Simulation, episode 5, I think. Actually, I might need to change that title actually on my my thing. But this has been The Simulation, episode 5. Appreciate you all for tuning in.